Hi guys. In this video, we'll be having a look at Python built-in functions and callables. So a function is a Python object that you can call to perform a certain action. It can return another object as well if we choose to. We can call a function by placing parentheses to the right of the function name. Some function names also allow us to pass arguments inside the parentheses. Arguments act as inputs to what our function wants to achieve. Internal to the function, these arguments are treated like variables. Python has several useful built-in functions that can help us work with different objects and an environment. Like we talked in the earlier video, we can determine the type of an object using type, then passing the object in question. We can find out the length of a container by using the len function. We can pass in the container name in order to figure out the length of the container. Then we can use callable in order to determine whether an object is callable or not. Then we can use sorted in order to return a new list from a container which has the items sorted sequentially. In case of integer or float values, it will be ordered numerically, ascending by default, or in the case of strings, it will be sorted alphabetically. We can use sum of a container in order to compute the sum of a container of numbers, min max in order to determine smallest and largest item. ABS is used to determine the absolute value of a number. ABS is basically like modulus function in mathematics. A wrapper object is used to basically return a string representation of an object. You can also have a look at the complete list of built-in functions. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is sufficient for most of the use cases. So we had a string defined earlier. We can find out that it is indeed a string. The length of a dictionary, as you remember, our dictionary had three key value pairs. If I just scroll up, we had three key value pairs, name, age, and favorite foods of a person. That is why the length of the dictionary is 3 as well. Then we have length, which we can also use for a string in order to determine the number of characters that are present in a string. Then we can use the callable function to determine if an object is callable. For instance, len function can be called in order to determine the length of a sequence. That is why we can see that the callable with len provided as an argument returns true. We can also use the callable function to determine if an object is callable. For instance, dict1. If I were to pass dict1 parenthesis with a bunch of arguments or sans arguments without any arguments, would I be able to do so? No. Hence, the answer is false. Then, the usage of a sorted function. We have a we have a list of float values. I'm saying float values because there is a float present in between. And if I were to run sorted, it will sort the numbers that are present. Similarly, we can see the usage of sorted on a bunch of strings. If I were to run this, then we can see that indeed it sorts alphabetically. Notice that whatever capital letters are present in each of the words, that precedes uh, are small case alphabets basically, or words that are starting with small case alphabets. Usually for convenience, what we do is that we change all of the words that are present in a list, for instance, or we change the string to a lowercase representation before carrying out the operation, since we do not care whether California starts with a capital C or Chicago starts with a capital C or a small c. So that is a good practice. We'll see in the upcoming videos how we can do that as well. Then we can use the sum function, passing in a list in order to compute the sum of the numbers which are present. Minimum, as the name suggests, min will return the minimum value present in the list. Minimum in case of characters or basically alphabets will return the alphabetically first occurring item in the container or item in the sequence of characters. Max function, on the other hand, will return maximum. If I were to run max of gibberish if I were to pass in gibberish to the max function or pass in a string to this max function, then it ends up returning the character with the character that is last in the alphabetical sequence. ABS just gives us the absolute value. It is typically used for converting negative values to non-negative values. So absolute of -12 is obviously 12. Then you can remember that we had a set defined. If I were to use wrapper function on this set, this will return me the string representation of an object. So it can be useful whenever, say, we are defining an API, we want to return the string representation of an object because that is more convenient than having a bunch of nested values. So we might use wrapper over there. Next, we'll have a look at Python objects, attributes, and we'll see some of the most common methods that are defined for strings, for dictionaries, for lists, and so on. So I'll see you in the next video, guys.